Now please give rise to bodhicitta, thinking I will establish all mother sentient beings by all means at the level of perfect enlightenment, and to that end I will listen to this teaching and put it into practice. The teaching we're looking at is the commentary on the Zobsang Ngondro Ningtik, the profound and secret heart essence of the Dakinis, a torch lighting the way to freedom, which is comprised of the virtuous beginning, virtuous middle, virtuous end, these three main sections. So we're currently looking at the virtuous beginning. We've covered the title, the opening homage, and the pledge to compose. And then we're talking about the motivation and conduct one needs to adopt, both the student and teacher need to adopt when giving teachings. So we covered those points yesterday. The importance of listening to the teachings with bodhicitta, free of the three faults of the pot, the 6 stains, and so on. And to adopt the fourfold perception, oneself as a sick person, a teacher as a doctor, and so on. These points of motivation and conduct, which need to be need to be adopted whenever listening to the teachings. So now we'll continue with the text. Continue where we left off. So as the text says, we're on page, if you're looking at the paperback version of the text, we're on page 6. So in the past I taught the words of my perfect teacher, and many of you here will have received those teachings from me. I taught it up in Humla and other places in the Himalayas, also here in Kathmandu. And many others also. And not just me, so many others, Khenpo's lamas and great scholars teach that precious text, the words of my perfect teacher, is incredibly widely taught. So in the words of my perfect teacher, we have the common outer preliminaries and the uncommon inner preliminaries, together with the extra practice of po-up, transference of consciousness. As everyone knows, that is the structure of the words of my perfect teacher. Here, however, in this commentary on the Ngondro, so the words of my perfect teacher is also a Ngondro commentary, right? And the text we are currently looking at is a Ngondro commentary. So beginning with the Ngondro begins with the 4 mind changings of precious human life, impermanence, karma, faults of samsara. And in the words of my perfect teacher, these 4 mind changings are followed by instructions on how to follow the teacher. Here in this commentary by Juju Rinpoche, the text begins with instructions on how to follow a spiritual friend, and that these instructions are followed by the 4 mind changings. So the order in which these points are presented is different. So you might think, why is there this difference? Why is it explained in one order in the words of my perfect teacher and in a different order here? What's going on here? Has Kyabje Dushin Rinpoche made a mistake, or has Patrul Rinpoche made a mistake? Is one right and one wrong? That's not the case at all. So, in the words of my perfect teacher, Patrul Rinpoche taught the instructions on how to follow a teacher as a kind of bridge between the outer preliminaries of the 4 mind changings and the inner preliminaries. Here, we just have a different presentation, a slightly different presentation. So here, the instructions on following a spiritual friend are presented first, before even the common outer preliminaries of 4 mind changings, because these preliminaries are practices of the Vajrayana path, the Vajrayana path of secret mantra, and when practicing the Vajrayana path, one has to follow a teacher, a guru. That is indispensable. For the Vajrayana path, and that is why, because the guru is so important on the Vajrayana path, then Juju Rinpoche has presented these instructions on following a spiritual friend at the very outset of his text. So the different orders of these two texts, the words of my perfect teacher and Jujun Rinpoche's text that we're looking at now, there are reasons, very genuine, wonderful reasons for the different orders in which these poets are presented. Whether it be the sutra teachings or tantric teachings, sutra path, tantric path, a teacher, a spiritual friend, a guru is indispensable. Accomplishment comes solely from following a spiritual friend. The Buddhas appear solely from teachers. This is taught, Rinpoche quoted some lines of scripture. This is the indispensability of a teacher is taught in both sutra and tantra. So the entryway to the sutra teachings is one of the 7 pratimoksha or personal liberation vows. That is how one enters into the sutra teachings, the vehicle of characteristics. When it comes to the Vajrayana path, the tantric path, one enters the tantric path by means of receiving empowerment. So here, the teaching we're looking at pertains to the Vajrayana. So, to enter the Vajrayana, first of all, we need to receive empowerment. How to receive empowerment? From a teacher. Empowerment is received from a teacher, hence the importance of a teacher or guru. And that is why, because of the importance of the guru, that is why these instructions on how to follow a spiritual friend, the route of the path, are presented first at the very outset of these instructions on the preliminaries. It's taught that without a guru, or rather without relying on a guru, it's not possible for Buddhas to appear. So all the 1,000 Buddhas of this excellent eon appeared as a result of following their teachers. So we have to follow teachers. There's no way around it. We have to follow teachers, a genuine teacher. But how to do that? How to actually go about it? And more to the point, what kind of teacher do we need to follow? What sort of qualities should they have? And from our side as the student, what sort of qualities do we need to have? And then when a qualified teacher and student come together, well then how should they engage in the teaching and study of the teachings? So this is what Jujun Rinpoche is explaining here at the outset of the text. This is a special feature, we could say, of his commentary here. In Dujun Rinpoche's treasure cycles, the 4 treasure cycles, which Rinpoche is mentioning by name. In these 4 treasure cycles of Dujun Rinpoche, well, the preliminary practices for all 4 treasure cycles of Dujun Rinpoche is this Ngondro we are currently looking at, the Ngondro, Ningdik Ngondro. So, since everyone is so familiar with the words of my perfect teacher, that being such a well-known commentary on the preliminary practices, some of you might think, well, why is this text presented in a different order? But the reason is just as explained. So the text continues, we're on page 6. As for the instructions to be studied, instructions means pith instructions, practical instructions. These fall into 2 general sections: how to follow a spiritual friend and how to set out on the path. So just a note from me is on the translation. Rinpoche, of course, is reading through every single word of the text so that we're getting the transmission at the same time as the teachings. But when he reads through the passages, it's not possible to keep up in English. So I'll just read certain sections of the text, but know that Rinpoche is reading every single word. So 2 general sections: how to follow a spiritual friend, the route of the path, and how in doing so to set out on the path. The first of these is divided into 3: the qualifications of masters to be followed, the qualifications of disciples, and how to follow a master, how to follow one's master. So how to follow a spiritual friend, which is comprised of those 3 chapters, and then how to set out on the path. There we will come to a detailed explanation of the common preliminaries, namely the 4 mind changings, and the uncommon preliminaries, namely refuge, bodhicitta, and so on, all the way up to Guru Yoga. So we begin with how to follow a spiritual friend, the route of the path. The route of the path, there is no way to train on the path, to follow the path, without relying on a teacher. So the qualifications of masters to be followed, the qualifications of the disciples following a master, how to follow one's master. We have these 3 subsections. The subsections themselves are so clear and so pertinent. So here we're talking about a teacher, and in this context, since I'm here giving the teaching, then I find myself in the position of a teacher, presuming to be the teacher, which is a bit embarrassing. But and so as we go through these qualities, the qualifications of a master to be followed, then it will be clear, to me at least, that I do not possess any of the qualities that a master should have. But what to do? Since I'm here in the position of a teacher, I have to, it's my duty to go through these points and to explain them clearly, right? We talk about practical instructions or pith instructions. That means that receiving the teachings as a like looking at yourself in the mirror and seeing, do I actually have these qualities? Do I have these faults? And taking the teachings very personally. So this is how we need to approach the practical instructions, meaning these teachings that we're now looking at. Ordinary childlike beings are incapable of proceeding even vaguely in the same direction as the perfect path by the strength of their own minds. Ordinary childlike beings cannot traverse the path on their own, by their own initiative. They just cannot lead themselves. Whatever you set out to do, whether it be politics or business or what have you, you need to be well versed, you need to be knowledgeable in that area, right? You need to know, okay, the context, you need to know about what you're doing, otherwise you won't be able to succeed in that. So the same goes with Dharma. So in a worldly context, it might be the case that people launch into some activity like business without any real knowledge or without any guidance from others, and then by luck, maybe very, very occasionally, they do gain some success just by acting on their own initiative. It's very, very rare, I think, but still it's possible that it could happen in a worldly context. However, in the Dhamma context, when it comes to traversing the path, it's not possible just to make progress on your own, to lead yourself along the path. It's also very dangerous to attempt to do so. For instance, up in Humla, nearby Humla in the Himalayas, there was someone, I won't mention their name, but they set off to practice the mountain Dhamma of Kyabje Juju Rinpoche, and they went crazy. They lost their mind. Kyabje Juju Rinpoche's mountain Dhamma, just like Garab Dorje's 3 vital words, is a teaching of incredible blessing. Actually, the mountain, Juju Rinpoche's mountain Dhamma really is pretty much the same as Garab Dorje's 3 vital words. We are so lucky, us students of this lineage. In addition, you have the late Yangtan Rinpoche's instructions on the view meditation conduct, which is an equally precious and equally profound teaching, pith instruction. So how fortunate are we? We have Pacha Rinpoche's commentary on the three vital words, Jushu Rinpoche's mountain Dharma, Yangtan Rinpoche's instruction, these sorts of precious teachings. In any case, there was this one student who went off to practice Jushu Rinpoche's mountain Dharma and became quite unwell, mentally unwell. And he then went to see my uncle, Agut Sewon Rinpoche, and said, what happened here? This is such a profound teaching. I tried to practice it, but actually I ended up losing my mind. Agut Sewon Rinpoche said, well, these profound teachings must be practiced first by receiving empowerment, instructions, and transmission. If you try and take a shortcut and practice without transmission and of authorization, well, this is the result. Jushu Rinpoche's profound teachings are guarded and looked over by the dakinis and protector deities. So if one mistreats them or treats them casually, carelessly, meaning you try and practice them and read them and study them without receiving authorization, meaning authorization through empowerment, transmission, permission from a lineage holder, then that is the consequence, losing your mind, going astray. And we see that happen, actually. We see that happen overseas. Countries new to the Dharma, like in the West, where some people are launching into the teachings without proper permission. So, this is to say that ordinary childlike beings, as the text says, are incapable of proceeding in the same direction as the perfect path by the strength of their own minds, meaning without relying on a genuine teacher. We cannot traverse the path on our own initiative. We need to follow a teacher. So, they first need to examine and then to follow a qualified diamond master. We could also say Vajra master. So here throughout this translation, Vajra Dorje is translated as diamond. The root of good practice, of progress and genuine progress in practice, is the Guru. Look at Jetsun Milarepa, the great yogi Milarepa. How did he become a great accomplished yogi of the Mahamudra? By following his Guru Mapa. Solely by following his Guru Mapa Lotsawa. So without following a spiritual teacher, it's just not possible to attain accomplishment. It'll be pretty difficult to arrive at accomplishment or realization. Look at Naropa, at all-knowing Longchenpa. Longchenpa from a young age was incredibly learned and also accomplished, but until he met his destined guru Kumaraza, until that point, he was not able to completely cut through all superimpositions and doubts and gain realization. So even the great Longchenpa, even the great yogi Milarepa, even these extraordinary beings need to rely on a spiritual friend. So Longchenpa became so excellent by following his teacher Kumaraza. Milarepa became who he was by following his teacher Mapa. So all the wonderful practitioners and teachers, they've become who they are, how they are, as a result of following teachers, following their own teachers. So, because of the importance of a teacher, of following a teacher, then to begin with, we need to examine a teacher, examine how they are, what sort of qualities they have. Are they genuine, authentic, or not? It said to begin with, we need to. It said at the outset, be skilled in examining the teacher, then be skilled in following the teacher, then be skilled in emulating the teacher. So this is the first step: is to examine the teacher. Is this teacher really genuine and sincere or not? Do they have worldly concerns or not? It said that traditionally the student should examine the teacher for 3 years, the teacher should examine the student for 3 years. That's really how it should go. But these days, the teacher and student just jump into a connection with one another like a dog just sinking its teeth into a piece of flesh. That's not really how it should be done. To begin with, one should examine the teacher for a long period of time. However, once you form a connection with the teacher by receiving empowerment and transmissions from them, then you have a connection with that teacher. You have a student-teacher relationship with that teacher, and even if they are a charlatan or a fraud, you need to maintain your commitment with them. You need to maintain pure perception because you've formed a connection with them by that point. So you examine, this is to say, you examine the teacher before receiving teachings from them, before forming a sacred connection with them. But once you form that sacred connection, then you need to honor them as a teacher. So we need to follow teachers in order to traverse the path, just in the same way as when you set out on a journey. If you're going somewhere you've never been before, you need a good guide, right? Otherwise, how will you get there? Well, these days we use technology, right? GPS. So even if you've never, you can go somewhere you've never gone before. If you have a GPS, right? The GPS shows you the way. So Lama is like that. They show us the way out of samsara and the 3 realms. They show us the way to liberation and enlightenment. So the Guru is like a guide on the path, like a ferryman steering a boat, a powerful escort for those traveling to dangerous places and so on. So we're now on page 9 of the text. So if you're traveling through a dangerous area, then you need some escorts, right? Some people to protect you from animals or bandits or whoever that are lingering in that place. Lama is like that. They lead you along the path in safety, protecting you. So the Lama is also like a ferryman steering a boat. If you have a boat but you don't have a ferryman, a captain, then you're not going to get to the other side of the river, are you? Even if you have a boat, well, that's not enough. You need someone to drive the boat. Once you have a ferryman, then you can use the boat to take you somewhere, right? So the teacher is like that. Without them, the text says, without the teacher, nothing is possible. One of the sutras says, omniscience depends on the instructions of a spiritual friend. To attain the state of omniscience, meaning the state of enlightenment, you have to rely on the instructions of a spiritual friend. We cannot work out how to reach enlightenment ourselves. The sutras describe Buddha as being a captain, a driver. So who is it who turns our mind to the Dhamma? It's our gurus, our teachers. Like if I look at myself, when I was young, I was pretty wild. I was pretty wild child and teenager. But then I met my teacher, Kimbo Daze Rinpoche, and I really started to change, to transform as a result of his kindness, his qualities. He not completely transform, unfortunately, but through the kindness of my teachers, basically, I was able to transform. So I had the fortune of meeting extraordinary spiritual friends. I've had the fortune of meeting and following extraordinary spiritual friends. Nevertheless, I haven't been able to completely transform myself through their influence, but still. It is possible by meeting a genuine teacher, if one then puts their teachings into practice, to completely transform oneself and gain accomplishment. So this is all to say that it's through following a teacher that we have the chance of progressing on the path to enlightenment. And because the teacher is so important, then at the outset we should be sure to really examine carefully the teacher, not just jump into a relationship. But rather than sort of just hesitating and not following a teacher, it is definitely better to follow the teacher, to form a connection and follow a teacher. In the Prajnaparamita teachings it says, Bodhisattvas who wish to attain perfect Buddhahood must first approach spiritual friends, they must follow them and they must serve them. So if you wish to attain perfect Buddhahood, then you need to approach spiritual friends, meaning you need to seek out a spiritual friend. And there are a lot of beautiful, inspiring stories to this end, like the story of the ever-weeping Bodhisattva, for those of you who've received the words of my perfect teacher, you would have heard this story. The way that he sought out the teacher and teachings, the Prajnaparamita teachings, the austerities he went through, the sacrifices he made. So these and other stories are very inspiring, and if you think of that story, the story of Bodhisattva ever weeping, well, he was seeking out the Prajnaparamita teachings, the sutra teachings, and yet he made such extraordinary sacrifices to that end. So if we think, well, we are seeking the Vajrayana teachings of secret mantra, so we should be willing to make even greater sacrifices. So in this way, we should approach spiritual friends, seek them out, and then we need to follow them. Not just for a year or two, but year after year. Just like Kimbo Daze Rinpoche spent 7 years, night and day with his guru, the all-knowing Putra Rinpoche, and Kimbo Chögyé Rinpoche spent 17 years by Putra Rinpoche's side. In the case of Kimbo Chögyé Rinpoche, he had many students who stayed with him for years, some even for their whole life, and their heart son, Kimbuchi Rinpoche's heart son or height disciple. Rinpoche mentioned one or two names of some of Kimbuchi Rinpoche's main students. They spent most of their lives by Kimbuchi Rinpoche's side, following him. So that is how to follow a teacher, not just to spend a few days or a short period of time with a teacher, and then to have all sorts of skeptical ideas about them, to transgress their wishes, disturb their minds, and so on. That is not how to follow a teacher. We should follow a teacher consistently, enduringly, and also without by maintaining our samayas, our sacred commitments with them, and never disturbing their mind or transgressing their instructions. We have the tradition of staying on 3-year retreat, and that's an excellent thing to do. But these days you see so many people some people who stay on 3-year retreat but then become filled with pride and conceit, thinking they're so great because they've done this short retreat. Likewise with study. People engage in study and they gain a title like Kempo or Geshe, what have you, or the title of Tuku, and then become very proud and conceitful, full of conceit. But there's no use in that, right? That's not the real Dharma, that's just a superficial show of Dharma, because the Dharma is not really merging with your mind in that case. So when we follow a teacher, it's not enough just to receive teachings and kind of go through this show of study and practice. We need to take the teachings to heart, and we need to really be embraced by the teacher. And merge their teachings with our own minds. That's what it means to follow a teacher, and as it says here, to serve them. Without someone at the helm, the boat will never reach the other side. Likewise, we might receive teachings, we've attained a precious human body, and we have the wish to practice the Dhamma, but if we don't have a teacher, then it's just like sitting in a boat, but without a ferryman to drive the boat. So just having the precious human body and the wish to practice Dhamma, that's not enough. We won't be able to reach liberation and enlightenment if we don't also encounter a teacher, a genuine teacher. Even for one in whom all virtues are complete, without a teacher there's no end to existence, to samsara. So, one in whom all virtues are complete, meaning someone who has attained a precious human body, who is aware of the faults of samsara, who wishes to attain liberation, who wishes to practice, who has all the external conducive circumstances like a good place to practice, a good place to study. Well, if they don't also encounter a teacher, they will not be able to free themselves from samsara. In Dzogchen Sharajapa's 80 verses of advice, he says, if you engage in years of retreat or years of study, but you haven't encountered a teacher and received instructions from them, then it's really no use. He says, to this end, Dzogchen Shirajapa says, If you haven't, he says, without receiving the pith instructions and realizing the natural state, no matter how many years you practice for, it's not going to help. It's just like a scarecrow, meaning your practice will be just like a scarecrow. It'll look like a person, but it's actually not the real thing. He says, if you stay, even if you stay for years in retreat or up in the mountains on your own, if you don't cut through your thoughts, if you don't cut through distraction, if you don't cut through your thoughts and concepts, well, all you're doing is being distracted. Even if you're alone, you're still distracted. So if you don't cut through discursive thoughts, even if you stay alone, you're still distracted. Says if you don't merge the Dharma with your own minds, debate and study has no meaning, to paraphrase. So the first of these quotes was speaking to those practicing in retreat and so on. And this last lines, if you don't merge the teachings with your mind, debate is just kind of ordinary talk. So that speaks to those engaged in study, right? And this text by Dzogchen Sherpa Jakpa is actually translated into English by Padmakara with Shechen Gyaltsen Rinpoche's commentary. Rinpoche is just telling a joke about having a big head. Yeah. If you don't take the teachings to heart, even if you become a skilled teacher, skilled at explaining the teachings, then you're no different than a parrot. A parrot can recite what it's taught, like it can recite Om Mani Padme Hum Shri, but then it just bends down and eats a bug. It doesn't take the meaning of the Mani mantra to heart, right? So, likewise, Dzogchen Sherpa Jakpa explains, we need to first understand that we need to cut through all outer, inner and secret concepts or superimpositions, understanding appearances to be mind, mind to be empty, emptiness to be non-duality, and so on. Non-duality to be self-liberated. Otherwise, without understanding these vital points and taking them to heart, just being learned in the teachings, just having dry book learning and parroting one's learning to others, it's really of no benefit. No real benefit to oneself, no real benefit to others either. So these are the vital points that Dzogchen Sherpa Jakpa mentions in his collected words of advice. So you might stay on retreat for 3 years or for many years, but if your retreat practice doesn't lead to realization of the natural state, well, it's really not so significant. It's just like a scarecrow, it's just a show. Even if you stay in isolation for a long time, if you don't cut through your clinging, if you don't liberate your clinging, well, all you've been doing is just lingering in a state of distraction. So these points are taught in many different places in the scriptures. In the ornament of the sutras, it says, "Take as a teacher someone disciplined, peaceful, perfectly peaceful, possessed of superior qualities," and so on. Someone who is full of love and never tires of teaching. So now we're at the top of page 10. So this quotation, no need to explain it actually, because Kyabje Rinpoche explains it in the following verse. So, in Pajo Rinpoche's teachings, he gives a lot of scoldings to teachers, to lamas, scolding them for chasing wealth, for chasing name, trying to gather students, and so on. He scolds monks and students who are busy with chasing offerings by going out to the villages to do pujas for people and so on, or who get busy themselves with farming. And then he makes prayers, may I not be may we not be like that. So it's very clear, isn't it? He makes it very, very clear. So in short, there's nothing meaningful in being a lama or a monk or a renunciant if you just busy yourself with mundane activities, running here, running there, in the name of pujas and offerings and this and that. When we say monk or renunciant, we're talking a monk or renunciate should be someone who has very few preoccupations, who is not a busy person. Just running here and there, as a practitioner, just running here and there and being very busy with various things, that is really not beneficial. That is not how we should be. As a practitioner, that is definitely not how one should be. Even as a wealthy person, if you're really busy all the time, not much good will come from that either. So, the text continues to explain teachers should be individuals who've perfectly tamed their minds by means of the three superior trainings: discipline, concentration, and wisdom. So these three trainings, discipline, concentration, and wisdom, they lead to one another. Discipline leads to concentration, concentration to wisdom. So they all lead to and mutually support one another. So the teacher should have thoroughly trained their mind by means of the three trainings. They should have tamed their mind by means of discipline. And they should have great learning as a result of having extensively studied the 3 baskets, Vinaya, Sutra, and Abhidharma. Their mind should be tamed. They should be rich with learning in the learning and knowledge of the 3 baskets of teachings. And they should put these teachings into practice and live accordingly, and live in accord with them. So, like Kyabje Jujun Rinpoche, Kyabje Dilgu Khyentse Rinpoche, and so on. They should have seen the way things truly are, unmistakably, and be eloquent in conveying their own experience to their disciples, combining it with scriptural authority and reasoning. So the teacher needs not only to be experienced themselves, but they need to be skilled in sharing their experience. If Buddha Shakyamuni had just attained enlightenment, but he wasn't skilled in sharing his realization and guiding others, we wouldn't benefit, right? In Jigme Limpa's life story, he says, better than having 100 rich students is to have one student who genuinely practices the Dharma. What precious lines of instruction, right? So we can see the same thing, the same mindset with the great masters like Chaja Rinpoche, Minling Trijin, and so on. They would not pay heed or be impressed by people who, trying to, with a lot of wealth or status, or people kind of offering to sponsor this and that. But if someone came to them, say, from a long way away, with a real sincere interest in the Dharma, or someone who'd done a lot of practice and was sincere, they would be delighted and give time to that student. So that's how it is. Likewise, the teacher should be diligent. They should take pains to achieve others' welfare. So we can see these qualities in many of the great masters of the past. They should have the virtue of patiently putting up with difficulties, never tire of explaining the teachings again and again. Well, this quality we could see in Khenpo Daza Rinpoche and Khenpo Chögyab Rinpoche. Every single day they taught tirelessly. It was so diligent in upholding and sharing the teachings. They taught every single day. I think Khenpo Chögyab Rinpoche especially taught every day for more than 30 years, even when he was sick. And the students didn't have any, they had no money to offer to their teachers. There were no good conditions. We couldn't even arrange a decent seat for our teacher. But still, they were so diligent in teaching for 3 or 4 hours every single day, non-stop. Every morning they teach for 3 or 4 hours without break. Every day, 7 days a week. Summer, winter, with no break. So when you look at the great masters of the past, my teachers and the other great teachers of the past, we can see they really did have all of these qualities. Then we have another quotation from the 50 verses on the teacher, which describes again the qualities a teacher should have: steady, disciplined, intelligent, patient, and so on. Such masters are extremely faithful and have disciplined their senses. So again, no need to go through this quotation line by line, because Dushin Rinpoche explains it clearly in the following verse, in the following paragraph. So the teacher should be self-controlled in terms of their body and also their speech. They should be not kind of wild and erratic and unreliable. Like these days you see so many lamas or practitioners zooming around on their motorbikes with their zens flapping in the wind, weaving in and out of the traffic. And then who knows, maybe they'll get into an accident and die. In any case, this is really not admirable conduct. In Pema Dongak Lingpa's Khyentse Wangpo's commentary, life story, we find a similar in that life story. I think Rinpoche is saying in that life story, Khyentse Wangpo says lamas should avoid going in cars. But these days we have lamas zooming around on their motorbikes, almost like dakinis flying through the sky. It's quite terrifying to see them zooming around their robes, flapping in the wind. This is not careful, moderate behavior. So a teacher should be controlled in their conduct, physically and also verbally, meaning they should speak gently and slowly, not really erratically and quickly and in a crazy way. They should be supremely wise and intelligent. When we say wise and intelligent, we're not talking about someone who just has a sharp tongue, who can debate well. We're talking about someone who has the wisdom of knowing what is good to do and what is good to avoid. So what should be adopted, what should be rejected. That is genuine intelligence, genuine wisdom. They should be very patient in the face of being harmed, in the face of harm or disrespect and so on. They should be able to put up with hardship and meditate on the profound truth of emptiness, the natural state. So they need to have these types of patience. So we need to have patience. Patience is very important when practicing the Dharma. Basically, these types of patience. The teacher should also be impartial in their pure and superior intentions for all sentient beings. In the past, many people really praised the late Dogye Khyentse Rinpoche, praised his qualities and activities. So a lot of people were sort of eulogizing the late Dogye Khyentse Rinpoche and saying wonderful things about his qualities and activities. But I thought the best thing that anyone said about Dogye Khyentse Rinpoche was what Gelong Matthew Rik said. He said, I spent 30 years or so by Dogye Khyentse Rinpoche's side, night and day, and I never saw him do anything for himself. Everything he did was done for the benefit of others. I thought that was the best thing. It summed it all up about the late Dogye Khyentse Rinpoche. Of course, he had many other qualities, his great learning and scholarship and so on. But what Gelong Matthew said, Rinpoche never did anything for his own benefit. He had exhausted all personal aims. He acted solely for the benefit of others. They do not craftily attempt to hide their own faults. They're free of deception. They're completely honest. So not kind of insincere and crafty, like acting as if they don't want or need any money, but then actually, trying to get it. Being deceitful or dishonest, acting like you know something when you don't. This is whether it be in a Dharma context or a mundane context. This kind of craftiness or dishonesty is always a bad thing. Like being kind of dishonest with someone, like smiling in an insincere way or trying to flatter someone to your personal ends. There's really nothing worse than this kind of crafty, dishonest behavior. So the teacher should be completely free of that, free of guile, and their minds should be well controlled. They should be skilled in the use of mantras, substances, and medicines for performing the activities of pacifying, increasing, and so on. However, having failed to practice well in retreat and perform the practices of approach and accomplishment, then we're not really able to enact these activities, right, of pacifying, increasing, magnetizing, and subjugating. But actually, mastery of these activities is very important. In their wish to free beings tormented by suffering, they are immensely compassionate, much more so than those who practice the vehicle of Prajnaparamitas. This is to say, just as it's taught in the Tantras, the Tantric teachings are taught for those of the highest faculties, or the sharpest faculties, and they involve little hardship and so on, so the special qualities of the Tantric teachings in comparison to the Sutra teachings as taught in this way. In the Sutra teachings, we do not find the wrathful, subjugating activities, for instance. One of the special qualities of the Vajrayana secret mantra teachings is that they can embrace and influence everyone. There is no one who cannot be embraced and touched by the Vajrayana teachings, because the Vajrayana teachings have the four activities: increasing, peaceful, wrathful, and magnetizing and subjugating. So even the most intractable, rough and wild demonic beings can be tamed by means of the tantric wrathful activities and brought onto the path. So this is one of the unique qualities of the Vajrayana. In the Sutra teachings, however, such beings, really rough, wild, negative, like demonic beings, it's said that they are, for the meantime, not recipients of, they're not suitable for the teachings, they cannot be kind of taken in. However, in the Vajrayana, these demonic beings can be taken in by means of the wrathful activities. In this context of the unsurpassable mantra vehicle, we strive for the level of Vajradhara in one lifetime, which in this degenerate age is so short. So, on the path of Sutra, the vehicle of characteristics, one has to gather merit for 3 countless eons. However, in the Tantric path, it is possible to attain complete enlightenment within, say, 16 lifetimes, 7 lifetimes, 3 lifetimes, or even a single lifetime, even actually within the course of 3 years. So it comparatively, it's an incredibly swift path. Like compared to walking, going in a car is quick. Compared to going in a car, going in a rocket is quicker. So the Vajrayana is like that. It's like going in a rocket. However, it's a very swift path, but also involves dangers, potential dangers, compared to the path of the Prajnaparamita or Sutra vehicle. So the teacher of the Vajrayana cannot bear the thought that sentient beings would have to continue suffering for 3 countless eons if they follow by following the path of the Prajnaparamita. They cannot bear the thought of that. They want all sentient beings to attain enlightenment, to be freed from suffering immediately. Their compassion for beings is unbearable. It is this need to put us on the path using urgent diligence and particularly powerful compassion that makes them, these Vajrayana teachers, so extremely loving and compassionate. So this is a beautiful explanation here in the commentary. They are learned in the treatises of the inner sciences and well acquainted with the 10 principles. So the 5 inner sciences, or 5, we could say, subjects, well acquainted with the 10 principles. The 10 principles are 10 tantric principles as taught in the Guyagaba Tantra, and they will be listed in a moment. Likewise, the teacher should be skilled in drawing mandalas and explaining the secret mantras to others. In drawing mandalas, which is an important part of ritual practice, like when doing drupjans, great accomplishments, and so on. So these different aspects of ritual practice, such as drawing mandalas with colored powders and so on, are extremely important, really very important. But that said, they need to be combined with empowerment, transmission, an inner understanding of the tantric teachings and personal practice and so on. Just knowledge and practice of these ritual arts on their own is not enough. It's not particularly beneficial. So again, these aspects of ritual practice are very important to learn and uphold, and the teacher needs to be skilled in these things. They need to have great faith, having great respect for firm devotion to the great vehicle in general and the mantra vehicle in particular. They must have disciplined their body, speech and mind by eradicating distractions with the wrong kinds of objects. Distractions with the wrong kinds of objects refers to the 8 worldly concerns. And in this way, they should have brought their senses under control. So, one of the great teachers, like my teachers, Khenpo-Chögyo Rinpoche, for instance, would emphasize this point, the importance of being free of the 8 worldly concerns. Sometimes, once he gave me such a harsh scolding that I felt like my face was burning for several days afterwards. In this regard, a very important point about how to receive the instructions, how to receive practical instructions. It's not enough just to read through these practical instructions like reading a story, like reading the story of King Gesar. You need to read through every line and then apply what you read to your mind. You need to reflect the words back at yourself and think, okay, do I have these qualities? Do I have these faults? You need to be constantly self-reflecting. That's what it means to receive instructions, not just to receive them like reading a story or learning some kind of information. Whatever the teaching is, you need to approach it like that. You need to be comparing yourself, your own state of mind, your own state of being, to the teachings that you're looking at. A bit like editing a text, like proofreading a text. So when we read through these list of qualities like we're doing now, then you need to be thinking, oh, do I have these qualities? Like I'm thinking, do I have these qualities? And then I say, well, I don't. I lack these qualities. How shameful, how embarrassing is that? Here the text is explaining the qualities that a genuine teacher needs to have. So all of us need to look through, especially those of us who are lamas or practitioners, you need to be reading through these lines and really asking yourself, do I have these qualities? If you lack these qualities and you're still embroiled with 8 worldly concerns and so on, then even if you take on the guise of a teacher, you will not be able to benefit anyone. You won't be able to benefit yourself or anyone else. Nothing meaningful will come from that. Just like Khenpo Daze Rinpoche said. Khenpo Daze Rinpoche would emphasize this. He said when you receive you should receive the teachings, take all the teachings as instructions and constantly be self-reflecting. So receive the teachings, a bit like proofreading a text, comparing yourself, your state of being, to what is being taught in the text. You shouldn't be thinking, when you read about these qualities or faults, then your reference point shouldn't be other people. Your reference point should be yourself. That is how we apply the teachings to our minds, right? I'm not saying this. I'm not saying that I'm able to do this. I'm just saying that this is how we should be receiving teachings, what we should be aiming at. So there's lots of you here, up on the stage on either side of me, who are teachers, who teach texts and guide other students. So you all need to pay attention to what the passages we're looking at here. Do I have these qualities or not? Do I have the qualities of a teacher or not? And then you can assess yourself whether you're really qualified to teach others or not. If you want to benefit beings, then the best way to benefit beings is to kind of guard your own mind, to cultivate bodhicitta as Yeshe Sogya says in her Mahaguru supplication. To paraphrase, she says, may I be endowed with bodhicitta, and through the strength of bodhicitta may I influence and benefit all others. That is how we benefit others, by cultivating bodhicitta within ourselves. If you cultivate bodhicitta within yourself, cultivate qualities within yourself, then naturally, spontaneously, you'll come to benefit beings. You don't need to kind of busy yourself with this and that, thinking, oh, this is how I'm going to help others. If a lama is just caught up in the 8 worldly concerns, those 8 selfish concerns, how can they possibly think about helping others? It's just not possible. Kyachi Rinpoche's text, this text is so incredibly clear, isn't it? His own words and explanation are so clear. The quotations that he has included here are so pertinent and so meaningful. In a sense, there's no need to explain anything. So, the Master Kunga Ningpo described the 10 principles as follows: mandalas and supreme concentration, symbolic gestures, movements, sitting postures, and so on. So even more special than the above qualifications are those of a master who teaches the pith instructions. Learned, free of such a master should be learned, free of mundane activities, free of mundane activities. Free of mundane activities, meaning activities concerned with this life, with achieving the aims of this fleeting mundane life, like material wealth, security, and so on. So there's this word in Tibetan, jajal, which means to be free of activity. Of course, it does refer to being free of like physical activity or preoccupations, but the real jajal, real kind of freedom of activity or real renunciate, is one who is free themselves from discursive thought and realize the natural state. So someone who has arrived at the one for whom the realization of awareness, Rigpa, has reached fullness. That is where we need to arrive at. That is the state, the level that a Dzogchen teacher needs to be at. So this teacher of the pith instructions should have reached the ultimate point of the absolute nature. They need to be someone like Kembochu, Rinpoche, and so on. They should be not deluded as to what is desirable. These are the marks of a master of the secret mantras. Then the great master Guru Rinpoche says, the roots of the path of the diamond masters, from keeping their commitments, their conduct is pure. From listening, they are richly adorned. As a result of reflection, they have discernment, and so on. Applying compassion, they care for their students. So these are the words of Guru Rinpoche. The root of the path is the diamond masters, the Vajra gurus. Vajra masters meaning one's own gurus. So these days, when it comes to blessings, meaning physical blessings like blessing pills and so on, we need to be very careful with these things actually. If you partake of blessings, blessing pills and so on, that have come from a lineage that doesn't have pure samaya with your own teachers and your own lineage, then actually you'll be contaminated by that. And that contamination will affect you, it will hinder your own practice and progress. Of course, for sort of ordinary or we could say worldly people, then maybe this isn't such an issue, or if they just receive whatever blessing they're offered out of pure perception. But as a practitioner, we need to be very careful about these things, because samaya is very serious. Samaya or sacred commitments. In the Guru Gaba Tantra, the samayas are listed, the 3 root samayas, the various branch samayas and so on. We find different enumerations of the root and branch samayas. But essentially, they can be contained in the samayas of the Guru's body, speech and mind, which essentially means to not disturb or go not to disturb or transgress, not to disturb the Guru's body, speech or mind, not to transgress their command. So that is how we transgress and break our samaya, if we disturb the Guru and if we transgress their instructions. Applying compassion, they care for their students. So if you're embraced by the compassion of your Guru, then the blessings will enter you. So someone like me, I don't have any real qualities or anything, but one great fortune I do have is that I was really taken in by my teachers, and they did show great compassion and affection for me. They really held me close. Like Dongse Chin Nombre Rumushe, Ken Rumushes, Durupchin, Rumushe, and so on. Like one time I got to go and spend a week with Dojo Rinpoche in Thailand, accompanied by one of my monks. And Rinpoche treated me with such affection, so closely. And likewise with my other teachers, all the teachers from whom I received teachings. If you're taken in, when you're taken in by your teacher, embraced in a sense, then the blessings will enter you. When the teacher embraces you with compassion, then the blessings automatically will enter you. This is how it works. When practicing, we supplicate the Guru and practice receiving the 4 empowerments from the Guru. But when we're in the living presence of the Guru, if they embrace us with their compassion, then in a sense there's no need to visualize receiving those 4 empowerments, because through the strength of their compassion, by being embraced with their compassion, we will receive their blessings. So these points are widely taught in other sutras, tantras, and pith instructions, and have been summarized into 7 sets of qualifications by the omniscient Dharma King, namely Longchenpa, and these we shall now explain. So the first set of qualifications is as follows: skillful in means, infinitely compassionate, and so on. So, skillful in means, in methods, infinitely compassionate, incredibly learned in the sutras and tantras, free of defects, full of good qualities. Now we'll dedicate the merit and pause here for a break.